Just before this BBC podcast gets underway, here's something you may not know. My name's Linda Davies, and I commission podcasts for BBC Sounds. As you'd expect, at the BBC we make podcasts of the very highest quality, featuring the most knowledgeable experts and genuinely engaging voices. What you may not know is that the BBC makes podcasts about all kinds of things, like pop stars, poltergeists, cricket, and conspiracy theories, and that's just a few examples. If you'd like to discover something a little bit unexpected, find your next podcast over at BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast, bringing you up to speed on everything you need to know about our beautiful game. It's Thursday, the 28th of March. I'm Phil Goodlad, and as it's a Thursday, we'll be focusing mainly on the Championship.
Oh! It's a goal from Lou Mo from the halfway line, out of the blue, and I'll tell you, this Dundee United team needed something like that.
It's the title showdown we've all been waiting for. Dundee United against Raith Rovers at Tannadice. Also,
nobody remembers a performance, they'll remember that we're the winners. Football's a short career, and when you get opportunities to win silverware, you've got to make sure you enjoy it as well.
Following their cup-winning heroics last week, can Airdrie open up a gap in the playoff places? And
what a lot of people want, they want to be able to enjoy the full day match experience as much as anybody else can, and it can be something as simple as, can I get to the toilet myself easily, can I see the pitch, and the biggest one for me, am I in with my own supporters?
What's it like to be a disabled Scottish football fan? We've got a special report. So much to discuss this morning. As always, delighted to say Cillian Sheridan joins us, Queen's Park striker. Cillian, morning to you.
How you doing, Phil? Very good morning.
What's it like on a Thursday morning ahead of a weekend round of fixtures after an international break? Do you wake up on a Thursday and think, man, I'm ready to go this weekend?
Well, unfortunately, it's one of the perks you lose when you go down to the Championship. You don't get the international breaks. The thing I miss is the actual having games to watch during the week. In the downtime, I suppose you do get a bit more exposure on the games you're playing in, because no one has really any games to look forward to on the weekend, like their club games. So you maybe get a bit more coverage on the games you're playing in, but it actually doesn't really affect us too much. It's just kind of continue as you are.
Yeah, I'm sure Callum Davidson has got a lot of 90-minute performances throughout the season for you on DVD that he just asks you to watch over and over and over again.
Yeah, until you said 90 minutes, that was where you might have been struggling. The weekend just there was the most I've done, so I'm getting there.
Good. Well, listen, we'll speak about that in just a moment. We're also going to hear from BBC Sports Scotland journalist Sean McGill. He's done a really insightful article into the experiences of being disabled and taking in a game in Scottish football. We'll be speaking to the Aberdeen season ticket holder and wheelchair user Darren Abel. Before all that, though, let's batter through the latest Scottish football headlines. We may have some good news finally for Scotland, as reports suggest Liverpool are optimistic Andy Robertson will feature again this season. That after coming off in the first half with an ankle injury the other night against Northern Ireland. The former Aberdeen striker Josh McGuinness is urging his national team boss Michael O'Neill to stick with Northern Ireland after being linked with a move to the vacant Pittodrie hot seat. Turkish club Trabzonspor has been linked with a move for Rangers midfielder John Lundstrom, who's out of contract at the end of the season. While across Glasgow, Celtic have been linked with a potential summer move for Blackburn Rovers striker Sami Smodic. And Hibs manager Nick Montgomery is mulling over a permanent transfer move for on loan Bournemouth striker Emiliano Marcondes. Cillian, we'll start where else but at Tannadice. Dundee United, a point clear of Raith Rovers at the top. The two sides meet this weekend. And arguably, you could say, the game of the weekend in Scotland. This may sound a silly question, but I'm paid to ask them. Who needs a result more in this game? Is it a stuttering Dundee United at the top, or is it Raith Rovers who have been chasing but can now get to within actually striking and going top themselves?
I think probably going off recent form, I'd say it's Dundee United. I think a lot of people would have expected them to not have the league sewn up as well. I know how tough of a league it is to win, but they probably would have been expecting to be a bit further ahead or to have pulled away in the last few weeks. So they'll probably be a bit disappointed with their recent form. So I think they'll just want to kind of cement themselves as the top team. Raith, I think probably Dundee United's last few weeks stuttering in that has probably given Raith a bit of belief that they can kind of have a bad result and still stay in the race. But I think kind of in terms of the full feeling probably around the club and for confidence in the team and belief, it's probably Dundee United, I would say.
How much pressure is on United, given the results of late and given the quite vociferous nature of the Dundee United fans who haven't been slow to voice their disapproval with Dundee United dropping points?
Yeah, no, look, I know the demands fans in Dundee can have on their team. I've witnessed it firsthand. I just think I think they probably were expecting the team to be doing much better at this stage of the season as well. I know they started the first few games on fire and then kind of dropped off a little bit. And I think everyone was expecting them when it was kind of around Christmas time, January time, when themselves and Raith were level, that they probably expected Dundee United to just kick on a bit with their squad and the resources they have. But then again, I mean, fair play to Raith for sticking with them. It's not easy it's probably one of the hardest things when you're in a title race and the other team drops points for you to then go and capitalise on it. In recent time, there's maybe been the opposite of that, where neither team were really taking that advantage. So this weekend probably gives one of them a chance to really sort of pull away from the other.
Our live match on the BBC Scotland channel is Airdrie's trip to Ayr. What's fascinating about the Championship, and you can also say, Cillian, what's fascinating about Scottish football, who would have thought at the start of the season that Airdrie and Ayr would be such an attractive proposition to watch on a Friday night? Ayr under Scott Brown, Rhys McCabe doing so well, playing a brand of football that I think everybody enjoys watching at Airdrie. That is the potential to be a really good fare on Friday night.
Yeah, I think probably at the start of the season, a lot of teams would have maybe turned their nose up at Airdrie going to play them, thinking it's a team that's just got up from League One. They'll probably go straight back down. They'll be easy to play against. Very young team, young manager. And I think they've probably proved a lot of people wrong. A lot of people say how good of a football team they are, and there's times they are, but they're also quite a hard team to play against. They can be quite dogged and can be a tough team to play against, and they can grind out results as well. So I think that's probably, in my opinion, I think that's the main reason they are where they are. They've got good structure in them. They know what they're doing, and they follow what has been pushed on them.
Do you think that there's still teams that come up against Airdrie and are surprised at how well they're doing? And I know that may sound a silly question, but at this stage in the season, the fact that they're still playing the way that they did at the start of the season.
I don't know if it's from the other teams. I think maybe Airdrie have probably gotten confidence as well. They've probably come up and thought, okay, we can compete here. Yeah, I'm sure that was probably trying to be instilled in them as soon as they went up from their manager. But it's one thing saying that, and then it's another thing players actually seeing it and witnessing it firsthand and seeing it like in real time happening. So probably once that happened and they start to get a few results and they go up the table, they probably start to realise, okay, we are actually here on merit. We're a good team, we're hard to beat. And that's probably what I'd put their season down to, maybe.
I mentioned Ayr and manager Scott Brown. Really interesting podcast dropping tomorrow afternoon for you. Jonathan Sutherland spent some time with the former Celtic and Aberdeen captain at Ayr. Make sure you don't miss that one, Jonathan, speaking to Scott Brown. Quickly, a run through the other Championship fixtures, Cillian. Arbroath, Dunfermline. Dunfermline, they need 3 points to keep up the pressure on Airdrie.
Yeah, no, Dunfermline have been on a real upturn of form as well lately. So they're one of the teams that after we play you're kind of looking at their result as well to see if they're pulling away from where we are in the table. And the last 2 or 3 games, they've been on a really good run. So they'll now be looking at catching Airdrie and getting into that playoff place, which is, it just kind of sums up the madness of the league. That a few bad results, you're kind of looking down and thinking, right, you're close to this relegation playoff. And then the flip side of it, you have a few good results and you're up thinking of playoff promotions. So I think from Dunfermline's side, they'll probably just be looking to continue the run they're on and keep going up the way rather than down. And then for Airdrie, it's probably just all about, I think they'll be telling themselves that between now and the end of the season, it's kind of their position to lose. They just need to hold on to it, and probably a few more good results can kind of grab that for them, I think.
We have Inverness Cally Thistle taking on Partick Thistle at Firhill. And then, of course, we have Queen's Park. Away to Morton, we've lost 5 in a row. Confidence must be high, Cillian, not just the fact that you're taking on a team in such a poor run, but that really under Callum Davidson, Queen's Park have found something this season.
Yeah, I think since I've been in, I've only known how things are under Callum and Liam, so I can't really say what it was like before then, but there was a feeling of, there is confidence, but not overconfident or getting carried away with a good result or a few good results. So it's no matter what kind of form you're in, and no matter what kind of form Morton are in, going away and playing there is never an easy game. Last season was the first time I got to experience it, and then once this season with Inverness, so I know how tough a place it is to go and play. And then it's kind of, is it bad that they're on? You can look at it two ways, where they're on a bad run, so it's maybe a bad time to get them because they're in that stage of trying everything to try and fix things, and there's a bit less complacency. Sometimes a team on a good run, they've got confidence, but they can also be a little bit complacent. So I don't think won't be taking anything for granted in terms of the fact they've been on a bad run. I think we'll just have to treat it as the tough fixture that it will be.
Have you played golf with the manager yet, Cillian?
Not yet, but I've heard all about him.
Yeah, don't, whatever you do. I mean, it's brilliant to sit back and watch Callum Davidson, who I think is like plus 95 as his handicap or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it makes you feel really...
I will if I get loads of shots.
Yeah. Well, he didn't seem to be too keen to give me as many shots as I wanted when we played. But no, the one thing as well, you mentioned that you at Queen's Park you haven't known anything else since playing under Callum. When you came in, did you pick up from the other players just how big a sea change was happening with the new manager, with the new style?
I think a few of them have kind of like just passed comment on saying if they believe if the way the team is now and the way the team is playing. I know it's easy when the team's on a good run and, like you're saying, haven't lost in a few, and look from the outside look like a good team and look hard to beat. They're kind of saying we'd be in a different position now if it was kind of like this from the start, which a lot of the times is what everyone will say in that position. But there just feels to be, I think I'm not talking about myself here, but they signed well, and bringing in Danny Wilson, Sean Welch, kind of like in those central areas. And the last few games, both of them have been brilliant, Danny in particular. So it kind of probably brings a bit of sturdiness into the team. And then I think they're playing under, I keep saying we are playing under a structure and a manager that kind of has the experience of putting together a good team and being successful. Yeah.
You know what you've done now is you've given yourself the kiss of death. Morton will probably run out 4-0 winners at the weekend. It'll be all your fault.
That's what I've been trying to talk down everything.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast.
Now, Scottish football doing enough for its disabled supporters? A fascinating article up at the BBC website asks that very question. Here to discuss is the man who wrote it, BBC Sports Scotland journalist Sean McGill, and wheelchair user and Aberdeen season ticket holder Darren Abel. Darren, I just want to touch on with you first just how difficult it is to go to a game in Scotland.
I think it's dependent on which stadium you're visiting. I think in fairness, I've been going to watch Aberdeen for, must be going on 30 years now, so there's certainly been lots of improvements over that time. I think the actual getting to the game itself isn't horrendous, but I think where we do need to make a lot of improvements is ticketing with one of them, in terms of how easy it is to actually purchase a ticket as a supporter that's in a wheelchair. To be fair to my own club, Aberdeen, they're pretty forward thinking in terms of for a number of years now, I'm actually able just to log in online as any other supporter would be and purchase tickets that way for both home and away games. But I could be wrong in saying this, but I'm also pretty sure that Aberdeen are the only club in the country that can offer that facility as well, which quite clearly isn't right.
I'll come to Sean McGill in just a moment, but just on accessing the stadium, what about actually getting to Pittodrie and other grounds when you're having to go on pavements that, let's be fair, if it's anything like the roads just now, there's a lot of holes in it, there's a lot of the paving slabs are uneven. I mean, just getting to the stadium can sometimes be problematic.
Yeah, it definitely can, and I would say even more so now that, if I know that I'm going to a game, then I do kind of reach out to either our own SLO or the other club directly and just kind of see what parking options are available, just to kind of get to the ground as close as we can to try and avoid that. I think there needs to be a bit of an acceptance that a lot of the grounds in Scottish football are old and you are going to come into complications regardless, but the flip side of that is there's also some very, very modern stadiums within that where it's not easy to get to. Even if I take Pittodrie as an example, kind of halfway through this season I moved to what they call the Red Shed, and they've tried to make improvements to that, but when I just kind of think of my walk up kind of Pittodrie Street and what the pavement's right, and you kind of hit a cobbled bit right at the main gate, and then you've got to go down a fairly steep ramp to get to your seating position, and then I'm okay, but I would say 99% of supporters in a wheelchair, if they need to go to the toilet or anything during the game, then they would need somebody to assist them back up the hill to get to that kind of thing. So it does remove the independence aspect a little bit.
Sean, one of the things in your excellent article is almost the cold, harsh reality of in Scottish football, clubs are struggling for finances, and that's causing a real block when it comes to trying to make stadiums more accessible for disabled fans.
Absolutely. We've known for a long time that there's no never-ending pot of money in Scottish football. It causes all kinds of problems, and the thing that I've found talking to clubs is that there certainly is a willingness to improve the standards and the services that we see for disabled supporters, but sometimes, as we say, the finances simply aren't there, and the age of stadiums that's mentioned as well is 100% an issue. Dundee mentioned that in my conversations with them. I mean, Dens Park's 125 years old. How can you improve your infrastructure when it's from the Victorian times? So that's something they've admitted, that they've got a real issue in terms of making these enhancements to their services for disabled supporters. Of course, they plan to move to a new stadium. They have the finances to do that now, but that's not the reality for a lot of clubs. And without that money, we're kind of in this stalling pattern where they want to make improvements, they're making improvements that they can, but in terms of that next step, there's that barrier at the moment.
You go through all the top flight clubs. St Johnstone is a club that comes out very well in your report. They have a supporter officer who speaks to supporters and finds out where the difficulties are, where the pinch points are in getting to the stadium, but also how their experience on a match day can be enhanced. To me, that just seems like almost a straightforward route for any club to go down.
Yeah, every club in the top flight do have a disability access officer. Some are full-time, some are part-time, and these conversations do happen. I think what I've found in speaking to supporters is they sometimes feel that these conversations aren't always shared between the clubs. I know that there is a group chat for the disability access officers in the top flight. They do talk to each other, but I think in terms of the ground level, in terms of the people who are experiencing these services, they don't always feel like things are replicated, that good ideas are transferred from one club to another. Collaboration isn't always the easiest thing in Scottish football. We know that. In terms of servicing a really important and passionate fan group, that's another thing I've found, that the passion in disabled supports, how many people would still pay for their season ticket when they can't see the pitch half the time? How many people would make these long journeys when you've got to encounter the pavements, these services, the expectation that you're not always going to get the best experience, but week in, week out, they're still going. Darren's off to the Euros in the summer, and despite what he saw on Tuesday night against Northern Ireland, he's going to still be supporting Steve Clarke's side despite all the logistical problems that come with that. So this is a very passionate, dedicated section of our support, and if clubs continue to underserve them, it's at their own downfall.
Dan, can I just ask finally, and it's a really interesting article that Sean has written for the website, but is there an embarrassment that we all have to feel in Scottish football that in this day and age we still have fans that can't access the games as easily as they would like?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if embarrassment's the right word, but I think there needs to be a good bit of reflection in terms of how we approach these things. So, as kind of Sean has quite rightly noted, every club does have an SLO or a disability access officer, which is fantastic from having a focal point and somebody that you can go to with any questions and queries. I think the trick that we miss in Scottish football is that I don't think we talk enough to the fans that are actually experiencing these things, and I think a lot of the time clubs do what they perceive to be the right thing, and that's not always the case. And I genuinely think it's just a naivety, and I think it's people just thinking that they are making the right decisions, and that's not necessarily the case. And why they don't want to open that dialogue, I'm really not sure, because for me it can only be a positive aspect if you actually involve the fans that are experiencing these things. And you know, Sean, you kind of mentioned kind of cost implications and finances, but I think you'll find if we actually speak to fans, what a lot of people want it's not expensive, and it's not thousands and millions of pounds. It's just they want to be able to enjoy the full day match experience as much as anybody else can. And it can be something as simple as, can I get to the toilet myself easily, and can I see the pitch? And the biggest one for me, I'm like in with my own supporters, because believe me, there's still grounds where you can go and have to sit in the opposite end with the home fans. And it's not so long ago that I was going to Ibrox to watch Aberdeen and sit in the Rangers end, and you don't need me to talk about that rivalry, but it was absolute torture.
It's a really interesting article, as I say, and Darren, thank you so much for getting your views. I sometimes feel it's one of the things in Scottish football that until you actually speak about it, as you say, we almost don't think about it, and that's no disrespect to anybody involved. It's just everybody gets so caught up in the game day that actually the fan experience is something that falls by the wayside. Aberdeen fan Darren Abel and BBC journalist Sean McGill, thank you. Well, that's all we've got time for in this edition of the Scottish Football Podcast. Many thanks to Cillian Sheridan, who joined us earlier. Also Sean McGill and Darren Abel, thank you for your insights, and thank you for listening as well. It's always great to have you along on these daily football podcasts. To read Sean's article that features contributions from Darren and other disabled Scottish football fans, just head to the BBC Sports Scotland website or mobile app. Remember, it's Ayr United Airdrie live on Sports Scene on the BBC Scotland channel from 7:30 on Friday night. And it's Jane Lewis in this chair tomorrow with Cammy Bell, the Scottish Football Podcast, dropping as ever for you on BBC Sounds in the morning. If you haven't done so already, just follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. For now, though, from me, Phil Goodlad, and from the rest of the Scottish Football Daily team, enjoy the beautiful game, and we'll speak again soon.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.